What's up everybody, it is DanKamYouKnow. Thank you so much for tuning into another video. And we've got a really interesting build here today because I've been looking at a lot of builds I've done recently and they're all black or white and there's never really that much color. So I kind of wanted to step out of my comfort zone and do something completely different. So I actually reached out to Trikes and they sent out their pink Flova F50 PC case. And this thing is very, very, very pink. And you can see if we take a look at the front, we've got this really interesting fabric here, which is pink with also some splashes of white in there. And same thing with the side down here. And we've also got our IO right here, which I believe is the best placement because it's the easiest to access, especially if your PC is on your desk. And then we also have these holes right here. And you can see that's actually for the Trikes crossflow fan. So this is going to add some additional airflow on top of the airflow we're going to have from all of our fans. So we should have a ton of air flowing through this thing. And luckily it is paint matched. You can see pretty much everything in this PC is pink, including that. So that's a nice little attention to detail, because if that was white, I think it would kind of stick out a little bit too much. But taking a look at the rest of the case, we've got that fabric down here and we have this pull tab right here. So we can go ahead and take off this panel. We've got mesh all along the top for a radiator and or fans. Taking a look at the back, it's mostly solid, but we have mesh over here, and this is going to be for fans that could be mounted on the side. And then on the rear, pretty standard, our motherboard's going to sit right here. We've got ventilation for our rear fan, PCIe slot covers, and our power supply is going to sit horizontal down here. Then we also have these nice colored feet on the bottom, which gives us a little bit of gap on the bottom so we can get fresh air into the bottom of the chassis. But let's go ahead and take off these panels and then we'll take a quick peek at the inside before getting to the build. So this case will support up to ATX motherboards and also back connect motherboards. And that's actually the route we're going to be going today. I've got a BTF motherboard and a BTF graphics card. So we're basically going to have no cables on the front side of this PC. So it's going to look really clean. So all these cavities right here going along the motherboard tray, those are for back connect boards. But if you are using a standard motherboard, we have these grommets up here. Like these ones are for your CPU cables, and here's for like your fan cables and AIO cables or whatever else you're running. Then we also do have some at the bottom here as well. You can fit two 120 millimeter fans on the bottom. Comes pre-installed with a 120 millimeter fan on the rear. You can fit up to three 120 millimeter fans at the top or up to a 360 millimeter radiator. And then you can fit up to two 120 millimeter fans on the side. And I'm gonna have to edit it in once I'm done, but I believe you can fit 140 millimeter fans over here, but I'm not too sure off the top of my head. So I'll have a note at the top of this video letting you know if you can fit 140s. And then you can fit up to three 120 millimeter fans on the front. And that's actually going to sit right next to our crossflow fan. So this is positioned right here and it's powered with one PWM cable. So you'll need a fan header to power the crossflow fan. And one thing about this crossflow fan, because I've already built in this case before, I did a black build in it that actually came out really clean. But one thing I noticed, if you want your radiator tubes to be mounted this way, the crossflow fan actually gets in the way. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna unscrew all of these and not completely remove them, but I'm actually gonna shift this down as far as it can go so I can fit the radiator and fans right here. And then basically the tubes, because the tubes get in the way of this. So I'm actually gonna have to lower this down. So during the build process, you'll probably see that, but there are some minor adjustments that need to happen to this if you want your tubes to be routed this way. You can route them this way, but I don't think it looks as clean. Let's see, what else am I missing? I think I covered everything on the front. Then taking a look at the rear, we've got this little drive caddy right here. Looks like for 2.5 inch drives. Then we also have this removable caddy down here for some more drives. We've got all of our IO connections right here. Our power supply is gonna sit horizontally down here. And then we do have a bunch of tie down spots for cable management. So right here, and then some Velcro right there, going all the way up right here. So it looks like cable management should be really easy, and you can see it's very deep as well. So our connections for the motherboard are going to stick out this way, and then our PSU cables are going to plug in right here, but we definitely have enough depth in the rear to make sure everything's going to fit. And then you guys know me, I go crazy with cable management, so it should look really clean once it's done. And then taking a look at all the parts, this is kind of a PC building tip. Let me actually grab my light so you guys can see better. So a little bit of a PC building tip. So even if you're experienced or if you're a first time builder, I always recommend having everything ready to go, because you can see I've got my motherboard right here and I've got the RAM, SSD and CPU already out of the box and pretty much ready to go. I've got all of my fans hooked up with all of the cables. We've got my radiator and fans all hooked up, and here's the pump. We've got GPU, we've got our PSU and all cables already ready to go. Then we've got our AIO screen, and then we've got some 3D printed parts, and I'll go ahead and show these off later, but they should look really cool in the finished build. So a bit of a tip is just to have everything ready to go rather than going box by box and having to learn how everything's connected and all that stuff. So I always recommend doing that, and that's how I do every build. And you can see on this magnetic tray, I've got all of the parts for the build, including AIO accessories and PSU screws and motherboard screws. So I kind of prep myself to make sure that I'm fully ready for the build. But guys, I think I've covered everything on the case. If there's anything I'm missing, I'll go over it once we show the finished build. But I say we just go ahead and jump into the build and get her done. Okay, so the motherboard is in. I've got all of my IO connections hooked up and cable management is looking good. I basically just got everything stuffed into this drive caddy, and I'm gonna clean this up a little bit more, but so far it's looking really clean. I've got the rear fan installed and then also the bottom fans, but this is where I ran into my first issue. You can see I have 2 screws securing them down right now, but I have these 3D printed covers I really wanted to use. But this adds about 3 millimeters of thickness, and it's not gonna focus. This is about 3 millimeters, and then these fans are 30 millimeter. And then I've got these screws right here, but these aren't long enough to go through this and then also through the fans, because if I put this in how it's supposed to go, like that, it does not reach and I cannot secure them. So I'm currently trying to figure out how I'm gonna do that. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a cross pattern. So I'm gonna have it cross like this, and then I'm gonna put this on top, and then I'm gonna cross these this way. So that's kind of my first little hiccup, and why during the montage you saw me kind of, I was thinking to myself, like, how the heck am I gonna do this? I've got these really thick fans and no way to secure them. So that's my first issue, but I'll go ahead and figure that out. I can do that towards the end of the build. But now we gotta do the front fans, we've gotta do these side fans, power supply, AIO, and then we'll be done. So let's go ahead and continue with the build. Okay, so I'm at another stopping point, and right now I just moved down the front fans, and then I also removed all the screws for the crossflow fan, and I moved this down as far as it can go. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the radiator in here, and I'm gonna have the tubes routed this way, and then I'm gonna lift this back up to the highest point I can get it. Because like I said earlier, when the crossflow fan is in its original position, you can't fit the tubes on this side, particularly the left side tube right here, the most forward tube for the radiator. So I'm gonna have to lower this down, lower the front fans. I'm gonna put the radiator in, make sure I have clearance, and then I'm gonna lift this up. And then you can see I've got all the screws loose over here. And then I'm gonna lift up this fan, secure it, and then also lift this up as far as I can get it. So that's kind of what I wanted to explain. It's a little bit tricky, but it's actually really easy to do. So on that note, all we've got left is the radiator, the pump, the AIO screen, and all the power supply cables, and we're almost done. So let's get to it. All right guys, so the build is all done, and I gotta say this looks absolutely incredible. I love the pink and white combination. And then the RGB on the fans, I kind of experimented with a bunch of different colors from pure white to pink, and then I ended up on warm white, and I feel like it really makes those 3D printed panels pop a lot. And then if we get a little bit closer, you can see it looks really good. And the petals on the tree, the sakura trees on the 3D printed covers look really good. And the first thing you probably notice is I did switch AIOs. I was having some software issues with the Trike Stage AIO, so I ended up swapping it out for the Panorama SE. So rather than trying to diagnose what was going on with the Stage AIO, I really wanted to get this video done, so I just swapped AIOs really quickly. But I do think this looks really good. And then I've got a pink Sakura GIF that I got from Giphy, and I think it matches well. We've also got some blue in there, so we got pink, white, and blue, and then a little bit of black as well. But it looks incredible. But let's take off the panels and then talk about the build more. Okay, so in the build, we've got a Ryzen 7800X3D, and that's being cooled by the Trike's Panorama SE. We've got an Asus TUF Gaming BTF B850 motherboard, and we've got 32 gigabytes of Team Group T-Create RAM. We've got an Asus BTF 5070 Ti, and you can see this is a pretty cableless build. You can see these fan cables over here, but once that side panel is off, those are actually not in view. So if we get a good look, you can see we have almost no cables showing on this one. I did a really good job at hiding most of them. Like the bottom fans, all the cables are hidden back there. And then the side and top fans, you can see I've got a bundle way in the top. Let me see if I can get to focus. So I've got them zip tied up there, so they're completely out of the way. So a near cableless build, and I just really love the BTF aesthetic. I just think it makes it look really clean. And then for storage, I believe we have a Corsair MP700, and it's 1 terabyte, but I may have to edit that. And then as far as the fans, these are Fantex D30s, which are some of my favorite fans, and they're 30 millimeters thick. They push a ton of air, and I really like the RGB on them, and they do daisy chain really well. So we've got those going all the way around. So we've got 2 reverse blade on the bottom. We've got 2 reverse blade on the side. We've got 3 regular blade on the front. So those are all intake, the front, side, and bottom. And then we've got a rear exhaust and then exhaust on the AIO. So in total, we have 7 intake fans, 4 exhaust fans for some nice positive pressure. And that's not even accounting for the Trike's crossflow fan. So we have a really, really positive setup here. And then as far as the AIO, I explained this a bunch, but you can see the tube right here. And actually, if I get it from the side, you can see the crossflow fan kind of interferes with the tube right there. So like I was mentioning earlier, when that crossflow fan is sitting right here regularly, this tube totally gets in the way. So if you are planning on running your tubes routed this way, which I do think looks cleanest, just make sure your crossflow fan is positioned down. Then if we look down here, you can see we have a gap that goes all the way down here. So this crossflow fan is definitely getting all of that air, and you can see it stops like right there. Then the fans are okay. You can have those pretty much positioned wherever, but I have them positioned right there, so it's even once that front cover is on, and that looks fantastic. Is there anything else I'm forgetting on here? We do have some Trike's little Velcro strips to kind of tidy up the AIO cables. Then all the 3D printed covers look great. And I'm doing the bottom, the side, and the rear. And then I do have one more 360 millimeter one, and I was gonna do it on the top, but it's not really visible at most angles, so I actually just left it off, and I think that looks good right there. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the back now. And the back came out really well, because as I've said, this is a BTF build, so all of our connections are on the back side. We've got our CPU cables. This is actually going to the pump. These are for either the side fans or the front fans. And then we've got RGB right here. And then this is also for the side or front fans, 24 pin. We've got USB-C, USB-A. The GPU gets power through the motherboard. So our GPU cable actually plugs into the motherboard. So that's that right there. Then we've got USB for the AIO. We've got all of our fan cables and HD audio, and everything is tidied up really well. And then I've got almost everything just shoved into this drive caddy, and then all the power supply cables are just kind of pushed back here. So at normal viewing angles, the cable management is extra clean. So I'm really happy with how this turned out. And honestly, it was really easy. Like I mentioned earlier, this cavity is really deep, so you have no issues with your cable management. Actually, let's get this angle right here. You can kind of see that the cables are right here. And then if we go to the side, there's a ton of depth. I know, I just realized I didn't show that off very well, but there's a lot of room for cable management to kind of sum it up. And I think it looks really good. So I'm actually really happy with this build. And this is the first time I've really ever done a colored build like this. Like I've never done a pink build. I've never done like a red build. So this was a really cool experience. And honestly, building this case is pretty easy. There's a few things you kind of have to get by. And then I don't know about the performance of the Trike's fan. I'm not going to do performance with and without it. There's lots of videos on YouTube if you want to check that out. But this is more just like a case overview and just kind of seeing what it's like building in it. But it was a good experience. Didn't really have too many issues. And I think the end result is fantastic. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe. Share it with your friends. I also made some short form videos on this if you want to check those out as well. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys have a great day, and then I'll see y'all in the next video.